Okay, guys, so I'm going to keep this in hand. So we're going to have maybe a little bit of this from time to time. But that's just because I'm going to go back and forth between showing this and showing this. And, yeah, so I'm not going to bother with trying to put it on a tripod or whatever. Okay, so this is going to be like the third video I've made on the topic here. I made the second one because it wasn't as clear as the first one was, and now I'm making the third because, unlike something I ever imagined, I have one of these blocks now in hand in front of me that I can actually talk about. So that's great, fucking awesome, right? Okay, so give you a little bit of back history on this block right here. You know, like, oh, Chris, how are you going to talk shit about block guards, but you clearly have a block with a block guard, and now you're going to sell it. Or you're going to attempt to sell it. Okay, so first off, on that, I have multiple options I have, and I'm going to talk about that separately. But I am completely fine with using this block in its current state. All right. And when I went to pull this out of my Integra, and I started to strip it down, I was immediately reminded of why I'm not comfortable with a block guard insert. First reason being is because when I went to go release the crank pulley or whatnot, the rotating assembly got stuck, and that's scary, man, for it to lock up. Now, of course, eventually it started to move again, but it froze up before I could get it to move, and that should never happen. That shouldn't something be that should ever happen. Now, one of the critiques I had when I was originally talking about the block guards, bro, you know, anybody who's got any kind of decent brain to know that you have to bore over your block after installing the block guard. Well, for me, for you to use this fucking thing here, and then I have to immediately go and bore over, that's a no-go for me. That's not a modification I want to do. Now, with that being said, you know, similar probably could be said about this too. Like, if you're going to if you're going to have the cylinder support system installed, you should probably bore and hone or whatnot. And even when talking to Jeffrey over at CNC Works, he also recommended that I bore over. Didn't say it was a must, but he said he recommended. And of course, I went ahead and followed the recommendation, and I allowed that to go down. I just went ahead and we did 5 over. Now this, on the other hand, as you can see, it's freshly honed. I can't replicate that hone, although I'm going to be trying again soon. But I've never been able to replicate this machine shop hone. I got some ideas to get closer to it, so I'm going to try that out. But anyway, this is fresh back from the machine shop. You can see it's all kind of bundled up still, and we went 82. This block I had was this cylinder. I'm pretty sure it was nicked up very bad. And as you can see, all that's just gone. Like, it was, if you go back and watch the older video when I was talking about this block before I got it bored over, it was fairly damaged. It was pretty good damaged. I was gonna run it, but at the end of the day, you know, I have this courtesy of Jeffrey Morgano, CNC Works, Scat, King Racing, and IPA Racing, all hooked up. So my initial idea was to use this for somebody. Build it and put it in somebody's car for them, and that way I could, you know, showcase it and continue with my build. But I'm moving very soon, and the person I was going to do that for, you know, it's just not going to happen. At this point, I'm like 3 weeks away from leaving the state, so I'm going to keep it for myself. And this is going to be a long-term block. And as far as this goes, well, I'll talk about that in another video. But anyway, so I not kind of bounce around here, but to go back and forth, my big thing was for block guards. I didn't like them because on multiple builds, because I thought, you know, like everybody generally thinks, the block guard is a kind of a good idea. When you first hear about it, you're like, yeah, reinforced cylinders. Why wouldn't that be great? They're like $80. I think maybe as low as $50. So like, that's a great idea. Let's do a block guard. But all right. So another person also mentioned that. You know, this block guard is a shitty block guard. It promotes overheating or whatnot, and that's one of the complaints that it can cause from a block guard, that it can overheat. Now, and his idea was to go with the Golden Eagle one. Now, I don't know if you've seen the Golden Eagle. You can kind of Google it if you want to, but it's much blockier, thicker, and it just kind of like, it has more gaps along the edges, which is supposed to let the coolant flow, I guess, instead of having like these holes where the head gasket is supposed to line up where it allows coolant flow. And I said, like, I'm not a big fan of the block guards. I actually hate the idea of the block guards. I really think they're placebos. I feel they're placebos. Like, okay, so take CNC Works as a cylinder support system for example. They warranty the most engines to 500 horsepower, and they're up until recently they're proven to 800. A couple months back, we had an Integra. It's a daily driven Integra that's making 900 horsepower on with the cylinder support system. Bang for your buck. This is definitely the best product to go with. It's much more cost effective when compared to re-sleeving, and it's proven so many builds over and over and over again to hold and withstand high horsepower. Unlike this, people say all the time, block guards, they're great, but like, where do you see like the common regular theme where they're setting new records for horsepower with these things in here? You just don't see it. And block guards they're literally tack in, so you take a hammer and you whack it into place, so they're never necessarily 100% flush. You can even see here where it's dipped down a little bit. It's like it's flush here and it's dipped down here. Man, it's not 100% precise fit. You can definitely see that it's something foreign that's kind of wedged in there. And so wedging this in there can distort the cylinders, which is what I believe was causing my rotating assembly to seize up. And it wasn't just on this block that I built with the block guard that it was happening. It was also another one. And I've also, like, you've watched the channel long term, I'm not the biggest fan of machine shop, just because of the fact that a lot of times machine shops are very expensive, very pricey. And if you don't need to have it bored over, then I'm not a big fan of boring over. So to stick a block guard in here, which could potentially shift and sink and potentially warp your cylinders and potentially cause overheating issues, that's a problem for me. All right, so unless it's a direct machine fit, which these aren't because they're mass produced off of one mold and it's just like one size fits all. Once you're under a serious strain and load, the block and the cylinders can walk a little bit. So if you're saying install the block guard, bore over, and then you're good to go, well, that could be defunct right there, because the fact is that this thing fucking shifts while it's sitting in here after you've already bored and honed, and it sinks down to another level and then re-wedges itself and gets crammed in there again. Then it could potentially warp your cylinders in a new spot. Now, compared to the CSS, what you see is machine fit in place. The gap is next to non-existent here. You also, I'm pretty sure, like, you see, if you went through their Instagram, you go through their Instagram for CSS, you can see like how they have like a cutout section of a block, and you can kind of see how they set it up internally. Well, first off, the block guards will be about like yay thick. All right, the cylinder support system is more like yay thick, so it's a lot thicker. There's a lot more to it. And even from a naked eye, looking in the groove, you can see that like they ridge the cylinders kind of like and make a platform for the CSS to sit on. So it's designed in the way they put it in place that it can't sink, it won't sink, and they advertise it as not sinking. And I've never seen one of these blocks that have been disassembled that have it shift to look any differently than it does right now. All right, so it won't sink down, and it won't cause any potential damage while you're running this damn thing. And it's much thicker. And also on top of that, these coolant ports you see are matched with the head gasket. So that way you're getting pretty much exactly the same coolant flow that you would get as if this was not here. And you're getting much extra reinforcement. So compared to this tack-on, very small, like very gap-having and prone to warp your cylinder shit, I would definitely, this is not what I would go with. I think people that have their opinion, you're going to have your opinion, you're going to do what you're going to do, whatever, and that's fine. And yes, I've personally built and run engines with a block guard, never had problems overheating or anything like that. But I can't say that I ever run an engine long term enough to see what kind of long term consequences were. And when I bought this particular block, it was a long block, and I didn't know the block guard was installed. And when I took it apart, I found out it was there, and I still wasn't against the block guard idea at the time. I was like, okay, cool, block guard, and it's GSR, so we got the girdle. So I was looking for as much reinforcement as I could, because I was deciding I was going to try and push for 500 plus on this thing. But of course, after time, I built this, and I built another engine where, actually, I think I built 3 different engines where I built 3 different engines that had block guards, and every single one of them had the same similar problem where it would just lock up. And so I'm over that part. That right there was a thing that started making me say no to block guards kind of early on in my building experience, that I just kept having that happen over and over again. And I don't ever, even though like the one block guard that I did, like I ran that made that was gonna be for big power, was the car that got stolen. My B20V had a block guard in it, and it had that problem where it would lock up, and I was extremely nervous about it for a long time. And when I ran the car, it turned over fine. It turned over fine under power. But you should never be building an engine to have a point where you're so stuck where it will not move that that's just a no-go. So because the B20V that car got stolen, I didn't get to see what was going to happen long term with it. But yeah, and anyway, I was saying at this point I'd be fine to run it because of the fact that I did board over now and whatnot. And if I do not sell this, and it does because of something in mind, it will be a guinea pig. I'll be buying another set of Nippon Racing pistons, and going as far as I can go with them. Like set up for as much horsepower. I mean, like I have a soft estimate to shoot for like 550, and then if I make 550, shoot for 600, just to take it, just to test the limits of the block, see where it goes, see what happens. You see whether I break a piston first or if I crack a sleeve. Because I would like to see where optimally what I would like to do would be able to get Nippon Racing extra Nippon Racing set of pistons, tuned for 600 horsepower, and just see how long it'll stay there, like how long with the beating it'll stay like that. And that goes along with the team building or idea or whatnot. But anyway, the main reason why I'm even considering selling this at all is because I am dabbling with the K series. I have two different Ks I want to build. I want to build an NA 250 plus wheel horsepower K, and I also want to build a turbo K that's 500 plus. And if I do sell this, all the money that I would get from this would be going to buying the pistons and rods for the K. As far as what's going on over here, like I said, I've been giving little updates. It's been weeks now. And I've just been prone. I've been accident prone. I've had bad incident after bad incident happened to me. I caught a staph infection that took me out for a week. The antibiotics had me too loopy to do anything. And at last, the other day, I was at the gym. Went really hard on deadlifts for a long time, and I woke up with the nastiest back pains. But anyway, I've been moving around the house, making sure to loosen myself up. So I'm gonna try and get back to doing some shit in here. It is a UFC night, so I'm gonna be watching that. But I plan on turning my thoughts back to this. The only thing that's actually slowing me down from finishing the assembly of this block right now is I got to gap rings, and that's time consuming, and it's a painstaking process, and try not to mess it up. Plus, I have redecided I was going to go with a little tighter gap, but I feel like with this build I'm going to try and really going to go for the 500. My initial thought was to go for mid to low 400s, so for longevity, just to make sure it'll hold. But I don't want to waste the CNC Works here. I want to keep, I really want to have fun with that now that I got the cylinder support system. And I feel like I'm going to be dealing with the workflow here pretty soon, where I can have the accessories to hold that higher power. So I'm going to be shooting for 500 horsepower, and I'm going to open up the gaps a little bit. So I'm now kind of happy I didn't already assemble this, because I'm going to open up the gaps a couple thousands more than I originally was going to set them. So yeah. Hopefully we're going to see some updates on that. Like I said, I'm probably not going to do a step-by-step walkthrough for it, but I will be doing a follow-up here pretty soon, and just to come in and show you the progress, what's going on. All right, guys. So I know I didn't. This is a little bit different of a review. Like I wanted to show you. I mainly wanted to showcase the difference, like side by side comparison, which I've never been able to do before. And talk about that a little bit. I'm going to leave the links to my other block guard CSS review there, because I ranted a little bit on it, and it's a little bit more focused and detailed, like instead of this where it's kind of like back and forth. All right, guys, so that's it. If you are interested in buying this, it's an 82mm GSR, and I'm going to talk about that here pretty soon. I guess I'm going to make a standalone video for it. Alright, guys, so thanks for watching. I hope you got some information out of this that you may not have known before, or make you think a little bit more. CNC Works cylinder support system. Is it more expensive than a block guard? Yes, but it's not that much more expensive. It's far cheaper than sleeves, And this is it's from the time I found out about this until today. I've always known to myself that if I was ever going to go where I was going to need, I felt I was going to need cylinder reinforcement, CNC Works cylinder support system would be the way I would go. Sleeves, doing aftermarket sleeves like LA sleeves or whatever, it's just not in the plans for me, because why would I mess with that when this is a far cheaper and it gets similar results. All right, guys, so thanks for watching, and peace.